guys, welcome to Live Without Training Wheels. I'm your host, Lynna Sutherland. I'm the owner and author of Homeschooling Without Training Wheels and Homeschool Mother of 8. Oh, I do this every time. Left the volume on my tablet on. I'm the homeschool mother of 8 kiddos, so I have very few brain cells left by this point in the evening. And I am so excited to be joined here by my dear friend, Mary Wilson, who is a homeschool mother of 4 and blogger at Not Before 7. And we will talk a little bit more about her and her background in just a moment. But before we get started, I wanted to just go over a few housekeeping details to make sure that you are comfortable here. First of all, if you would, please take a moment to share this broadcast. If you are on Facebook, I'm sure you know how to share. If you're in Crowdcast, there's a little button up there that looks like a square with an arrow in it. Just click on that and it says invite, and then you can choose whatever options you'd like to use. Also, if you are watching from Facebook or YouTube, you are more than welcome to just keep watching from right here. I do want to let you know that all of the interaction that we're doing here, all the question answering that we're doing, the comments that we're reading are here in the Crowdcast event. So if you're watching from YouTube or Facebook and you would like to ask questions and engage in the discussion, then you're going to want to look in the video description for the Crowdcast link and come over into the Crowdcast event to do that. If you'd rather just watch, then you can do that just as well on Facebook or YouTube or wherever you're from, whichever page you're watching. The best engagement in Crowdcast is going to be on a desktop or laptop, but you can watch it from any device that's connected to the internet, best through a Chrome browser. If you're watching on your mobile device, what you want to do is turn it into landscape mode and then click the little square in the top right corner so that you can see full screen, and then tap the box that says view chat, and that will bring the chat window back into view so you can see what's going on there. Okay, so before we get started, a couple of fun things about Crowdcast. Right at the bottom, right there under Mary's face, is a button that says polls. And we've got a little poll there. Thank you, Mary. We've got a little poll there because I'm just curious about our viewers that we've got here tonight, whether you are feeling comfortable about chatting with your kids or not. And if you're not, then let us know what are some of the things that are an obstacle for you in engaging in that conversation. And then you'll also notice right next to the button that says polls, there's a button that says ask a question. We've already got some questions rolling in. We will get to as many as we can at the end of our discussion. But if you see one that looks particularly interesting to you or that you would also like to hear about, make sure to upload it, because we'll just start at the top with the ones that are the most common or most interested, the most number of folks are interested in, and we'll go from there. So if you see one you'd like to have answered, upload it so that it has the best opportunity of being addressed tonight. Let's see. Oh, another cool thing. If you are watching this Crowdcast on the replay, just a quick tip. It's not available now. Right now, you'll just have to be patient and listen to us in real time. But if you're watching on the replay, you can watch at up to 3 times the speed. So if you want to just kind of skim, you can do that. Or another cool thing about the Ask a Question mode here in Crowdcast is that you can click on the Ask a Question button during the replay, and you can click on the button next to any of the questions that are answered, and it will skip you right to the place in the replay where that question is addressed. So especially if you ask a question and then you have to run take care of a kid because, mom life, then on the replay, you can just jump right to the place in the video where your question was addressed and catch up on what was said. So welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Let's talk about our topic tonight. We're here to talk about having conversations with our children, which is exciting, but also kind of overwhelming. And so I'm very thankful that I have my dear friend, Mary Wilson here. And I mentioned in the email this morning that Mary and I have known each other since we were little. The caveat is we kind of knew each other when we were little, and then we wound up kind of growing up in separate states. So I wouldn't say we grew up together, but we technically have known each other, I guess, since before we were born, right? Like our parents were friends.
Yeah.
Before either of us existed. But anyway, so we kind of reconnected as adults, like, oh, hey, you're a mom and a homeschooler, and she was a blogger long before I was. So I was kind of, admiring that and wondering about how she did all that fancy blogging stuff. So I'm delighted to have her here with me this evening. So Mary, why don't you just start out telling us a little bit about you, your kiddos, ages you've got, a little bit about your blog.
All right. I live in North Carolina. I actually grew up in Maryland, and we began our family there. We've only lived in North Carolina 5 years. And my kids are now 6. My oldest is a daughter. She is 16. She just began driving this week, which is exciting and scary and amazing and wonderful and terrifying all at once. Then I have a 14-year-old daughter. She's in 8th grade, and she is into acting, and she's been taking theater, and she is a Taekwondo student this year. And then I have a 11-year-old boy who is in 6th grade. So I have 2 middle schoolers this year and then a high schooler. My 11-year-old is into Fortnite, like most 11-year-old boys around the world. My 9-year-old son is my only elementary schooler left. And he has big siblings, so he is also into Fortnite.
Yeah, the little ones catch on to everything earlier than the older ones did when they were the first ones coming through, right? Yeah.
Oh, they do. Let's see. Oh, blogging. I actually began blogging when my 3rd son, who's now about to be 12, was 6 months old. So it's been 11 years for me. And it was just, people were doing these online journals, and I'd always been a journaler, and I love to talk. I'm an extrovert, and I was home with these babies, and I just started writing. And then about 3 years ago, maybe 4 now, I decided to recreate my blog and kind of rebrand and give it a more focused look at homeschooling instead of just an online journal. So that was a definite change for me just a few years ago. And then Lena did start blogging, and we would talk about that. And now she's the teacher and I'm the student because she's a very fast learner.
So it's been such a joy to interact with Mary about all kinds of things, homeschooling and blogging, business kinds of things. So, okay. I guess before we start talking about how to have these big conversations, let's go over this. It might seem obvious, but why? Why do we want to have big, meaningful conversations with our kids?
You mean other than because we're an extrovert?
Other than to fulfill our own needs to...
Yeah. And for introvert moms as well. I was thinking about this, and I thought, really for me, and I would think for most people, is you want to get to know your kids. You want to get to know who they are and what they're thinking about and what's on their mind, even if it's a lot of Fortnite. And, what are their goals? My boys have real goals in this game. My daughter has real goals in her work life and in things going on. So for me, that is a key aspect, is getting to know them and who they are. And if we're starting when they're young doing that and talking about Fortnite goals, then as they grow older and those goals turn into more, real world outside things, it's already a natural conversation. We've been talking about goals since they were little.
I love that. Yeah.
Getting to know their opinions. And I think, and as our kids are young and wherever they are, for me, a lot of these conversations too are building a foundation that we will continue to build on even as they leave the house, that we have this relationship where we, yes, talk about the weather in our day, but we also talk about deeper things, even politics now that they're getting older.
So, okay, I love that perspective. I'm already hearing something that's really sticking out to me, and that is that, you're having conversations about big concepts in terms of, like you were saying, goals, but you're not doing it in a like complex topic. Like, you're talking Fortnite, but you're still, kind of laying that foundation for, like, oh, we have goals, and how do we reach those goals? And okay, I'm loving that. That's great. Good food for thought.
Yeah.
So, okay, so what are we going for? How do we know when, we've reached that? Like, I might not have thought my son is explaining his Fortnite goals to me. Oh, good, that was a deep conversation. So how do I know what I'm looking for?
There was actually, I was thinking about this, like, how do you know when, that you're having this? And I actually wrote down, as I was thinking through this, is all conversations are meaningful. They all are. Do some leave mom in tears of joy of this beautiful moment? Yes, there are definitely those. But, that conversation about Fortnite is meaningful. Yeah. It's definitely meaningful to your kid, even for you, if it feels like, oh my gosh, I have so many other things. But to me, all conversations are meaningful. Granted, some are helping our kids, develop and form opinions more than others. Some are helping them explore ideas and feelings and all more than others.
Hmm.
But in general, I think we need to look at all of the conversations we're having with our kids as meaningful conversations. Just some are maybe deeper,
Hmm.
kind of you're digging deeper than that surface
So
level.
what if a mom is wondering, like, how do I know if I'm headed in the right direction or making progress, or like I'm getting only one word answers? How do I know if I'm, like, are we moving forward, or is there something I'm missing?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Um, I was thinking through like when we start to see signs that our kids are trusting us with who they
Mm.
are, and that may be just starting with Fortnite or starting with Minecraft or with you know, a game they like to play or building with blocks. And then you start to see that they've trusted you with an opinion or a feeling or when someone has hurt
Mm.
them, and you start to see that your kids are opening up to trust you with the person that they are and they believe you will help take care of that. Um, I think that was just one thing I was kind of thinking through is that when we're getting to know them better, then our conversations, they're working for us. We're getting to know who our kids are better.
Yeah, yeah. And like you said, if somebody's hurt them, so that's not something you can necessarily like strategize or schedule as a mom. Like those kinds of
No,
things just happen.
don't do
No,
that.
no, no.
Don't do that.
Well, but
And it,
that's the same thing like when I talk about sibling conflicts. It's like, they're so hard because they're never scheduled. It's not like, well, at 10:30 we're going to have a fight over who gets to use the pencil, and then at 11:45 it's going to be, he looked at me funny and, so we know it's
right.
important, but it's always like random and, when we weren't expecting it and anyway.
Yes. And I even jotted down like you need to be careful when you're thinking about these meaningful conversations and wanting to have one because kids can sniff that out in a heartbeat. And they're kind of like, what are you up to, mom?
I love it. I love it.
Why are you doing
Yeah.
this? Like, so I did jot
Mom's
down,
got
like,
her deep
remember,
conversation face on.
yeah, this is not a checklist
Yeah, yeah,
item.
yeah.
This isn't at the end of the day that you're going to go, check, I had a meaningful conversation. Because some days you're going to have more than you wanted
Right.
to. And you might go a week feeling like all you did was, talk about whose pencil it was.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Well, and that the negative ones can be meaningful too. Like even if it's like, like this was hard and sad and this person was very upset and that's not, it doesn't have to be a positive. I mean, we want it to be positive in terms of their experience of us listening, but their feelings don't have to be all rosy and positive. Okay,
Right.
so
In fact, it's funny. This kind of segues into what we were going to talk about at some point tonight, like tools I use to
yeah,
to
yeah,
help with
that's the next thing.
conversation.
Go for it.
But today was actually a rough day. Linda knows this. We were talking about it, and I won't go into any details, but we'll just say it was not a good day. And I was sitting down to plan this, and one of the tools I actually like with my teenager is this
Mm-hmm.
journal. You do
Love
not
that.
have to buy a fancy journal. It can just be. It started as spiral notebooks. Literally, when my kids were like 7 and 8, it was just a spiral notebook we wrote back and forth in. And I was sitting here thinking about I don't even know what to say because today was so
Mm-hmm.
rough. And so I took this journal and I sat down and I told her, I don't know what to say because today was so rough. And I said, but here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you some things I know. And so I just wrote some things I know about her, about us, about our family, and just wrote some truth. And that is one way that sometimes a conversation, her and I may not talk about it at all, but there's a conversation going on
I love that. Okay,
right here.
so let's absolutely do this. Let's talk about, even though we can't always plan for them and they happen sporadically and at 11:30 at night and whatever, there's definitely are tools, like you said, that you can use to facilitate or support good conversation. So go ahead and share some of those with us. I would love to hear.
Okay, yeah. So I did just share the
Yeah.
journal and I see someone commenting with tweens and teens. And here's something I always give as a caveat with this thing because I will have moms tell me, well, they're not interested in the journal or they never write me back or that kind of thing. Then just write them.
Mm. Yeah.
I promise you they are reading it. This journal is nice because it has, I'll try to open to a page we haven't written on. It has lots of free space. Again, you could do this in a spiral. The reason I like the journal is it also has prompts, like little things you can fill out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. See, now I
And
was telling
sometimes
Mary,
that helps.
yeah, my daughter and I tried the like blank journal, and honestly, it was the other way around. She is a prolific writer, and I'd give it to her and be like, whew, I wrote one. That's so great. And then like 15 minutes later, it'd be back to me and I'd be like, oh no, I can't write it in again. And I just, I don't know, what do I write? Like how many times do you say, I love you and I'm proud of you and you're a wonderful daughter and I'm so glad that we're doing this. So I liked the idea of prompts. I'm going to check that out.
Yeah, it's been silly things, even like your top 10. It was a top
Oh
10
yeah.
list, like your favorite song, your favorite TV show. So sometimes it's not deep, but what we were just talking about, if every conversation is meaningful, your relationship's going to be draining,
Well,
but
yeah.
every conversation is important. So even just discussing your favorite shows, and we've been doing this today. When I wrote to her, I happened to notice that in the free space above it, it was from December 18th of 2015.
Wow.
So, but that also says like we go through phases. So we've been doing this for 3 years. There's still plenty of room.
Wow.
So don't get in your head like, oh, they're writing back and forth every night. We might go 2 months and never write.
Okay.
And then something might spur us on where we write back and forth every night. So that's one tool. But I just want to give that caveat that you cannot control them communicating back.
Yeah.
You can only put out your own efforts and then allow them to respond or not respond with no guilt.
Yeah. Yeah. I like
no guilt.
that.
Okay. Other things. That one's kind of serious. I jotted down, since we're talking about teens, let's go ahead and stay focused on the teens for a moment. One of my other favorite things for teens and tweens, I see someone saying she has no interest in communicating with me. I saw that in the questions, like kids who are more quiet. One of my favorite tools is Starbucks. It could be a Target Icy, it could be Barnes and Noble, it could be whatever you like that fits in your budget, but Starbucks with no agenda. That is one of my favorite tools with teens is, hey, I'm going to run to the grocery store. You want to come with me? We can run to Starbucks for a frap. I have not found a child in my house who will turn down a frap. Or an Icy at Target, which is only $1.50 or $1.70 compared to the $5 frap. And no agenda. And sometimes nothing comes up. We talk about the flavor of the Frappuccino and then we leave. And other times, boom, suddenly something just starts pouring out. And that has been one of my favorite things to do with my teens. And in fact, the harder of a time I'm having with them, the more I know I need to grab them and take them for something to sit.
Mm-hmm.
Teens, I don't know what it is. It's a removal, same way I am.
Yeah.
Like it's a removal from their environment and they're old enough to kind of need that. So whatever it is, that is one tool that I use for a meaningful conversation with a teen. A sugar.
Strikes me as good, like, a kind of a life lesson of like, sometimes you need to get out of your environment and,
Yeah. And just change things up. And then I was thinking, I have a lot of tools because I'm a homeschool mom. And I think a lot of us probably here are homeschool moms. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of tools for great conversations in your school day that aren't necessarily curriculum, but just really great conversations. So one book I pulled out that I really like is this philosophy book. This is not a religious book. This is just literally discussing great questions like, is time what you see when you look at a clock? That kind of stuff. We've talked a lot about the values questions. Is it your duty to give to charity? I mean, so we just have really great from the, we started this when my son was maybe 7, who's 9 now, and we just pick different ones occasionally. And it's interesting to get to know your kids. And this one's a little more guided because you're putting a question out there and saying like, we're going to talk about this. And we do it at dinner because then dad's home and it feels a little different. It doesn't feel like mom sitting down with the kids at the school day.
Yeah.
So that's been a really nice tool to just have like big conversations without trying to come up with it yourself. Like, what else should we talk about?
Yeah, I love that.
Let's see. I have loved dinner time chat forever. So I'll give you a little backstory. Back when my girls were very young, I would say they were like 5 and 3. Maybe they were 6 and 4 because they did talk back. And at 3, I don't think they would have had much. Um, but I had read somewhere, and we decided every day at dinner, we would ask them, what was the best part of your day and what was the hardest part of your day? We used to say worst part, but I don't know, that rubbed me wrong. So we ended up saying the hardest part of your day. And we still do it. Like tonight, I can tell you the best part of my kids' days and the hardest part of their day because we talked about it at dinner. And then we decided we wanted to add more to it. So I started finding like different questions online, silly questions, would you rathers, different things. And oh, Karen, I see, just said they did it too. Highlights and lowlights. That's another great term.
I like that. Yeah.
So I actually put together a whole collection that's on my blog of year-round conversation starters. And these aren't, some might lead you to those kind of deep, meaningful conversations, but a lot are just, these are the fun stuff that there's no agenda. Yeah. Everyone can just kind of talk and share. They are seasonal. So there's a page for every month. And I'm trying to flip to where we are in December here. So here's December. So a lot of these will have like a holiday kind of theme to them. Well, some of them are just, what would you like to get for Christmas and why? The sun goes down early in December. What is the best part about it? Do you prefer texting, calling, emailing, writing, or talking in person? So there's some in here for teens also. And because I have all the ages, I feel like I was able to pay attention to that. So there's fun stuff for the younger ones and there's stuff that the teens can get into too. And we just make it really relaxed, like put it in a jar, somebody pull out a question, and then we go ahead and answer the question. And yeah, as Karen's saying, now I've never had them actually report what other people have said,
I like that, yeah.
You know, to talk about actually taking turns and letting someone else answer the question before you necessarily do. So that's been another tool that we've used in the house. And since we're talking about it, I didn't want to forget this. Just for Lena's listeners here, I went ahead and there is a coupon code for you guys. This is normally $9.99 on the blog, but if you use the coupon code, all capital letters, HWOT, Homeschooling Without Training Wheels, capital HWOT, then you get $2 off right now.
Now I'm going to
there you go.
Button here at the bottom of the screen that will give you a link
to
a blog post that Mary wrote. Don't hop over there now, though. Stay here and listen to Mary. But later on, you can follow that link and then use the code HWOT. Her conversation starters are at this link. You can find them in that post. And then if you want to grab them, HWOT, to save yourself a couple of dollars.
And if you're interested, for free, I have a sheet of would you rather questions, and that's for subscribers. So if you hop over to that blog post and then you subscribe to the blog, you can have access to just a free set to get you started. So that's just for fun conversations. I also, are we ready? I'm going to keep going with some other resources.
Yeah, go. You're good.
Okay. We watch CNN 10 every morning. And as you get into the middle school, the tween, and then the teens, I am not the most current events educated person. I don't, some people keep up with the news. CNN 10 has been 10 minutes of down the middle. I know CNN tends to have a viewpoint when they report the news, so I get a lot of questions about that. I would say that the CNN 10, it's geared for students, does not reflect necessarily the viewpoint you will get when you go read the full articles and things on CNN. They do try to do a very good job of just straight down the middle facts. There might be a thing or two people pick up on if they're more concerned about that than maybe I am. But in general, I've had most friends happy with that. And that has sparked some amazing conversations because we sit down and we watch it together. And then suddenly we're talking about our opinions on communism. We're looking up videos to find more about it. And right in that process, my kids are forming opinions. They're learning what I think. They're learning what's going on in the world. And sometimes it's really deep and meaningful. And other times they're just looking at mommy to see if I'm crying about a news story.
And you're not asking, it's not like you're like, so here we sit over our Frappuccino. What do you think of communism? And they're like, what? It's like an
Right.
organic, like we just watched this thing and we're all thinking about it and,
Yes. And, and I do want to add, I do have at least one kid who is sometimes a little resistant. Um, so I know there are moms out there thinking, oh my gosh, my kids would be like, could we just be done this? And I have heard that said to me more than once by at least one of my children, like, all right, mom, enough about Kim Jong Un. Okay, I'm done with North Korea today. Could I please move on the rest of my day? And I really try in those. I'm very anti shaming in parenting as much as it depends on me. And I really try to guilt free say, hey, well, we're going to go ahead and continue the conversation, but you know what? You're right. It's been a while. We're getting a little repetitive here. Yes, please go ahead. You can go get started on something
Mhm.
else or go take a walk or do your schoolwork. But I do want to keep talking because we're okay with it. And it's hard to make that balance, but I like to give that freedom unless it's something I think is very important to their quote unquote homeschool curriculum. And I'm like, no, you have to be here. It's part of your history credit. But for the most part, I try to give them the freedom to leave a conversation because if you're being forced into one, you're never going to get
Yeah,
anywhere
yeah.
meaningful.
And I love that, guilt free. Like, it's not like, fine, then you leave. You can't be part of us. It's like, hey, it's cool. We're into this, but if you're not, you don't have to feel compelled to be equally as enthused about all the topics we're interested in talking about. And I'm sure that when you do that repeatedly and they really see like mom really isn't irritated, there's really no like after effects of mom being resentful that I left the conversation, then they go forward with that. The next time you say it's cool, you can leave, they believe you.
Right. And I've had other moms say, well, what if then they all leave? Well, then they all leave. They weren't actually really interested in the conversation.
I mean,
So that, I can't say that's ever happened. I've not had one complain and leave. If the others are really enjoying it, they've stayed and it's been
now
fine.
is CNN 10
So, but
free? I've never used this before.
oh yeah, it's totally
Yeah.
free. It's at cnn.com/CNN10.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a spokesperson for them. I actually really love it. And we put it up on the TV and it's how we start our school day every day is we watch the news together. And what is nice too, and I know you're running into this too, Lynn, as your older ones get older, is that you can watch it with multiple
Mm-hmm.
ages. Now, there is time that there's war or scary things or, the threat of nuclear things from Korea. I mean, so you have to kind of use your judgment with your younger kids. My youngest started watching it at 7, but he is not overly sensitive. So I've been okay with that. But if you had a really sensitive, if my oldest had been 7 at that time, she probably would need
Yeah.
to been playing blocks in the other
My
room.
most sensitive one is my 10-year-old, so that's always interesting.
Oh, yeah, when it's smack in the middle.
Yeah.
um, so yeah, that's something. And since we're talking about TV and watching, another thing I've really, and again, as the kids started hitting 5th, 6th, 7th grade, was TV shows have been an amazing tool for conversation. And I feel like when my kids were really little, there was this constant like, oh, we shouldn't watch TV and oh, we can't watch TV. And during meal times, we were supposed to sit around the table and chat. And it was probably 3 years ago when I was like, I'm a homeschool mom. I'm done at lunch. Like, I'm done. I don't want to sit around the table and chat. I want to sit quietly and drink hot tea and eat my lunch. So and this may not work for everyone, take and leave what works for you. But my kids watch a show every day at lunch now. And we have had some of the best conversations over the Brady Bunch and boys versus girls, gender roles, modesty
Mm-hmm.
issues, peer pressure. I mean, it was amazing. There was this whole one on peer pressure and smoking, on lying to your parents. I mean, I was amazed at what a tool television has become for us. Now, finding shows that are appropriate at all the ages, that you're going to have to dig a little. But my older 2 daughters, we watch a television show here and there. We've gone through series after the boys are upstairs going to bed at night too. So that was another way to fit in some. But television has been, use it. I mean, sit and ask them after a TV show, watch what they're watching, even when it's Voltron. And I know Karen knows what I'm talking about here. Just to see what is so engaging about these characters. We have had some really intense conversations about Voltron and relationships, and it's fascinating. Like, just take TV and use it
Yeah,
as
just
well.
another example where the topic may not be like the kind of thing where you think, oh yeah, this is going to be great, deep, meaningful conversation, but the type of, the way you discuss it. And yeah, I am totally in agreement with you. My husband's father tells a story about how, when he was a teen, he was kind of like quiet and moody and in his room all the time. And they never knew if he would ever talk to him again. And then one time they were on a Boy Scout camping trip, and my father-in-law is like, one of the adults going along the trip. And he and my husband were walking, my husband was like, I don't know, 14 at the time or something. They were walking along the trail together. And Matt just turned to his dad and said, I've been watching this show called Cheers, and there's this interesting character named Sam. And he just launched into this complete character analysis of like Sam and what made him tick and Dad was just kind of like, oh my gosh, just be quiet and listen because this might not ever happen again. But they started watching Cheers together. And that was like, that was the beginning of them like having something to discuss. And to this day, they listen to music together. About once a month, they get together and listen to, music. And
Wow.
Yeah. And that's.
Yeah, music. I didn't even mention that because it's not something that necessarily is engaged one of my kids. But music would be another great one to talk about the lyrics and what they mean and to print them out. I know I did do that one time with a Taylor Swift song we were all into and actually looked at what is she saying? Like, let's talk about this.
So speaking of, you mentioned this at a couple of points, but like the guilt for you can leave this conversation if you're not interested. What are some things that you feel like would put a damper on not just a particular conversation, but just a culture where a conversation can happen?
I was thinking about this because I was definitely guilty of one today, and that would be passive aggressive behavior where you're saying something, but your kid knows that you don't mean. See, this is the lovely thing about having teenage daughters is she said, way to be passive aggressive.
She knows.
And I was like, I'm going to say nothing because I'm not in a place to apologize quite yet, but darn it,
my
she's
number,
right.
Yeah.
She's called me out. So I have to check that. There's something in me that one comes a little too naturally. So I have to really watch that.
I think it counts as mom points that your daughter knows what passive aggressive is and she can identify it. I mean, I think that counts for something.
Maybe she has a lot of experience with being on the other end. I don't know. But yes, I do try to admit my faults. I would say distraction. I have to be really careful when I'm just trying to be available to my kids that this little thing is on silent. Yeah. It distracts her now too. This is the funny thing about teens. She hears my phone and she's like, who's calling? She knows it might be making plans with friends, like, so those little things have to go far away. Anytime you or I have a goal of controlling the conversation or trying to achieve a certain outcome, you're not going to have a natural conversation. And that's really hard, depending on what you're talking about. And I'm not saying that every conversation has to be then this meaningful, open-ended conversation. I mean, sometimes there's a time to say, no, this is how life is. And I'm sorry, you're going to have to do that. But if you're doing that, this is not going to be the time that you're having this deep, meaningful conversation with your kids where you're really getting to know them.
Yeah.
So if you have a goal in mind, that's usually an issue.
Right. Yeah, that's the same thing with like the sibling conflict stuff. Like there's a time where you say, I'm sorry, we're in a hurry. You're sitting in the front seat with me and you're sitting in the back, but just don't count that as like skills in negotiating because, like you kind of had to take charge there. And another day you can work on that whole, like, let's work this out. Let's consider each other's needs and interests. And
right.
Some days you just say like, another day, you're sitting in the front, you're sitting in the back. Let's go.
Yeah. Like we're not going to spend a lot of time on this one. Yeah, so I definitely, and then anytime that I'm stressed is a damper on conversation. And I think the most important thing you can do as a mom is just admit it and say it. Like, you know what, sweetie, I am really overwhelmed and stressed right now. I'd love to talk to you about this. Can we write about it in your journal tonight? Can we pick this up tomorrow? Can I visit you at bedtime? But like, if I don't get such and such done, just be honest about it, but don't expect don't pretend. They can pick up on it, that you're not really in the conversation.
Yeah,
So I've just noticed that about me.
yeah, that's good. Or, I mean, for me, not that I'm not overwhelmed, but I'm just thinking sometimes it's more like weepy, like, it's not you, I'm not upset with you, everything's fine. On the other side, it's just mommy's hormones going crazy or whatever. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, I
Well,
agree.
let's do this. Let's go ahead and jump into the questions. Just want to remind folks,
Okay.
if you're watching from Facebook, again, you're welcome to keep watching from Facebook, but the questions that we're answering are here in the Crowdcast event. We've already got several, and folks are starting to vote on the ones that are of the most interest to them. So definitely, if you would like to ask a question or upvote questions that are here, look for the link in the video description to the actual Crowdcast event and come join us in the Crowdcast event. Otherwise, you're welcome to just keep listening on Facebook. So the first question we have is from Rochelle. She says, my tween is the opposite of me. She's reserved and doesn't open up. An example is that she doesn't ask to shave her legs, pluck her eyebrows, shave her underarms. I had to say, would you like to, or just buy an electric shaver and say, this is for, and then she's happy, of course, but she's never said a word about it. Am I doing something wrong?
No. Here's the quick answer. Definitely not. And it's funny you actually bring up this particular topic because both of my daughters are pretty open with me, but I definitely have one that when it comes to anything kind of personal, body, growing up, sex, any of that, like, she's very uncomfortable. I have to bring it up. I have to talk about it. So I one year just put a bunch of like personal care items, like an electric razor, in her stocking. And she was kind of like, what is all this for? And I'm like, well, at some point you're going to want it. So here it is.
So stocking stuffers can be deep conversation starters. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, apparently. Hey, hint, hint, we need to have a conversation. And where my other daughter's like, how do you use this? Where does it go? Can you demonstrate how, and the other one, I literally had to drag her into the bathroom and was like, I know you definitely don't want to see this, but I'm going to show you how to shave a leg. Like, just so you know, we're going to just go over this real quick. So I think some of that is just kids' personality. I was never comfortable talking about that stuff with my parents, and I talk all the time. So, but I didn't want to talk about anything like personal hygiene, dating, sex stuff at all. I just would have shut down.
And
so,
yet you have a really good, comfortable relationship with your mom now. You can talk to her about things.
Right. I'd probably still shut down on some personal stuff. Like, Mom, no, sorry.
That is a good one. Okay, let's see. Oops, I scrolled down too far. All right, Tina. Tina says, my 7-year-old can be very definite in his opinions. How do you handle it when you know they're wrong, but they won't just accept a correction, especially on faith-related things like, I don't think God can hear my prayers because he doesn't have ears. You can guess how the conversation goes. I don't think he has ears, actually, but anyway, that's another topic.
Yeah, I was sitting there thinking, I would say, like, well, what makes you think he doesn't have ears? Or how do you think you could listen without ears? Like, for me, things like that, I would want to get curious. I have really been practicing how to get curious with people instead of, frustrated or demanding or have a goal or whatever it is. So I would be like, I'm really curious. What makes you think he can't hear your prayers? Or, well, do you think there's any way to hear something if you don't have ears? Especially with a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
They're not actually probably forming their most deepest theological, they're kind of putting things out there. I don't know, maybe some 7-year-olds are. But I probably would get curious and explore that with them and not necessarily say, well, of course God can hear your prayers. And maybe you do pull out a Bible verse and kind of say, well, what do you think this means then? When it says, God hears our prayers, or tells us to pray, like, I wonder how he hears them. And you might be fascinated where this kid has some crazy idea they'll come up with on how.
Yeah, and it sounds like, Tina's got something that other moms wish they had, which is that her kid is like actively expressing his views on things, even when those views might, contradict what mom would think or believe. So he's willing to express his opinions on these things. That's a really good start.
And we were talking about this before. It's really important, even with these 7-year-old ones that seem quote unquote silly, that Tina, I mean, clearly you're taking it seriously because that's what builds their trust later to come when they're, a teenager saying, I don't think God hears me. And they're not going to say it's because God doesn't have ears. They're going to have like life situations that are starting to add up and they're going, I don't understand. So I think it's really good to take it seriously and then to explore the question, what makes you say that? And it might be that your 7-year-old actually does have something that he was praying about and you didn't even know. And he's come up with this hypothesis. So by asking, like, what makes you say that, getting curious, you're going to learn a lot more about your kid. You're going to learn whether this is just being silly or if this is really something on their mind.
Yeah, or if it's even about, am I allowed to say things that I think you might disagree with, and what will happen if I say those things?
Another good one. And just in case there's somebody out there's like, my kid would shut down or, they'd be like, well, I just don't think that. I think it's okay sometimes to make a little note and come back 2 days later and go, it's really, especially if you're concerned, I was really thinking about what you said the other day about God not having ears and kind of just throw out a little thought, because I read this verse in the Bible and I'm wondering then what that would mean and just leave it out there.
Yeah, that's great. Because then it would convey to them, like, mom was really listening and she's been thinking about it in the meantime. And
right.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. So this is a question that I got. It was actually a comment on the blog post. So I copied it in here. It's from Wendy. She says, I have only boys. Youngest is 16. As a homeschool mom, I have seen all my sons pull away from me as the mommy, and realize that our relationship needs to undergo a change as they become men. Since I struggle putting off the mom in me, I have to remind myself frequently they don't appreciate momming anymore. They want respect and support. Given this, what advice do you have for moms to enable healthy and strong connections with their upper teen sons?
I saw this one earlier.
Right.
I want to qualify it with I do not have upper teen sons.
Right.
My oldest is 16 and she's a girl. And I do think there is a difference in those relationships as far as I've been told and observed in other parenting circles. I haven't experienced it. My oldest son is just about to turn 12. I was thinking about, okay, here I'm an adult and I have a good relationship with my kids, but I don't want them mothering me, or with my parents, but I don't want them mothering me. What do I want? I want my parents to encourage me. I want them to support me. I want them to be curious. I mean, we were just talking about this, about my life. And so I'm thinking that I would give is off. And again, it's the same thing with this God has no ears. As your teen sons are making their choices and all, to be more curious than directive. Oh, that's an interesting decision. Oh, I wonder why you would choose that career. What do you see there? Or I wonder why you would choose to do this or whatever it is. But maybe not be so authoritative, but more curious and encouraging in their life than necessarily telling them, because by the time they're in their 20s, they're not going to respond well to, well, you're not allowed to do that. Not going to go over.
Yeah. And, valuing their opinion as, a separate human being, not just a, how does this work in our household? And what does this look like as, you're my child? And, okay. So afterwards, not that what Mary said wasn't wonderful, but I'm also going to link to, I just thought about this. Kay Chance, who writes at Heart to Heart Homeschooling, had a great post on 10 things your teen son wishes you knew, or something like that. And she talks some in there about respecting them as they, get older and that kind of thing. So that might offer a little bit extra. So I will link to that in the show notes of the post. Oh, did you read that, Karen? I really enjoyed that one. Okay, let's see. And Karen says, oh my, Karen, you are a better mama than me. How do you actively listen to that don't interest you? Question of the hour, Mary Wilson.
You don't all the time.
Pokemon. All right.
You brought up Pokemon. I remember making a decision that in order to participate in that world of which I knew nothing and cared this much, is picking something that I could decide to know about.
Mm.
So for me, it was the 9 evolutions of Eevee. There was this Pokemon that could evolve into 9 different things, and we made it a game. Could mom name them? And so it gave me a
Can't go
way
that deep.
to like, well, we had the stuffed animals. So we'd line them up and I'd try to name the stuffed animals. And um, it never went into deep conversations. It was kind of a game, but it was like mom's playing our game with us. Like she's trying to name these characters, and Flareon and Staryon and Wateryon. I'm making them up now. They're all wrong because this is how long I remembered them. I remembered them for like that 2-month period, and then they're gone. Right now in my house it's Fortnite. Learning some key things you can ask about, like, oh, hey, what are the challenges in this battle pass season? I know to ask that. Just taking note of 2 or 3 things. I'm not saying I can sit around and have an hour conversation. I can't.
Yeah.
But enough to show some interest. And when they call you to come look at what they built, or look at who they just defeated, or look at what level they just passed, or look at what block building, it's no different than whatever it was when they were little. Go look,
Yeah, I love
ask
that.
2 questions, and then leave.
And I love that you said, it was just a short period of time. And yet, I mean, it doesn't have to be like you are as into it as they are for the duration of time that they are into it. My kids, they're not as much at the moment, but, for a long time, they were big into Minecraft. And it was something that they would often do together. Like they'd all be in the same world together, building stuff. And so I got the Minecraft app on my tablet. And I mean, like, not anywhere near as much interest as they had or as much time as they spent on it. But I would hop into their Minecraft world and go build stuff, and they'd come in my house, and I'd go in their houses and see the things they were doing. And all total, my time on Minecraft was probably like 6 hours or something for the whole time. But the coolest thing happened. My son one time invited me on a Minecraft date. Now he has a skin builder, and so he can create skins, meaning like what the person is wearing, like what their outfit looks like. So he made a skin for me and a skin for himself, like dress clothes. And he had built like a restaurant with a menu on the wall and a table and an outdoor patio, and, had these activities planned.
Awesome.
And, it was the coolest thing. And it happened once. So it wasn't like, oh, yes, every week we get on Minecraft together. But it was such a, like, kind of a cool thing. And so now he thinks, my mom was interested in Minecraft with me, which again, it was like half an hour probably, but it meant a lot to him that he did this, and I said yes. And, so again, it doesn't have to be like, oh yeah, every time they're into it, you're into it, and for the same amount of time and to the same intensity level.
And Karen's saying we're putting her to shame, but since I know her, I can call her out on that because I know she plays Pokemon Go with her kids.
Well, there you go.
I know they use her phone to do this, and she's walking with them. So, right, but that's okay. It's okay to like it.
Yeah,
Like that's
right.
good. I like Fortnite dancing. I think it's hysterical. It's amusing to me. So why not choose that aspect to be the one that I share with them and be like, all right, let's do, hype, woo, woo, and then do the dance.
Yeah. I mean, and as moms, I don't think we're called to like reformat our personalities after the image of our children. I mean, we should care about things that are important to them because they're important to them, but it's okay also to express, I am a distinct human being and I have my own interests, and some of them are completely boring to you, but they really make me excited.
Right. Yeah. I agree.
Okay. We got one more here from Amy. Amy says, tips to draw out conversation with my daughter who withdraws. Definitely not easy to talk to. She doesn't even want to talk about books she reads. She asks me why I don't just read the book myself. I truly want to connect with her, but her heart is hard to get into. Maybe it's a 12-year-old thing.
Oh, it's a 12-year-old thing. Not all 12-year-olds, but I definitely had a 12-year-old girl who, and it's funny, and Lena knows that I run a lot of book clubs for my kids, but it's the exact issue you're describing was when I started the first book club for my daughter, because sitting and trying to talk about a book with her, like she didn't want to read them with the whole family anymore. She wanted to read on her own. and she didn't want, like, it was really awkward and weird to sit and try to talk about a book, just the two of
Hmm.
us. She was not interested in that. It was one word answers. And that was how a book club was formed with other girls her
Love it.
age. It's not going on anymore, but it took us through those middle school years to have other people. And even now, we bring just maybe one other friend. Let's just invite a friend to read this book with us, because it was awkward. It's the same daughter that I do a lot of writing to more than always, face to face kind of talking, because she's a little more resistant unless she's in the mood.
So having other girls her age made it feel not weird to talk about, but then you're still there and you're still part of the conversation. I like that.
Yes. And other moms occasionally would host or do things like that. Um, oh, I'm reading her comment about
Mm.
that. Um,
Read it out loud so we'll have it on there.
okay, Amy said, we've attended a mother daughter book club, and the things she shared with others was amazing, but sad that she doesn't talk to me. Maybe the journal idea is better if she's not as verbal. And I also want to say, it can feel sad and personal, but don't take it that way. I have really started to adjust to when they hit that age where they want to now be their own. They are like trying to pull away from you. The fact that she shared things with others while you were present and you got to hear them, it's not personal. It's, I want to be who I am, and I don't want to be under this mom authority as much anymore. And I think as homeschool moms, it's particularly difficult because we are responsible for their education, and it can feel personal. Like, well, why don't you want to talk about it with
Mm.
me? But it is the beautiful part of them growing up. They want to take these ideas they have and they want to go in the world with them. They don't care what mom thinks about them anymore, not in like a mean way, but it's like, I want to test me out
Mm.
there. I want to find out what those people think of my
Mm-hmm.
ideas. And that's really stimulating to a kid. So I just started realizing, like, this isn't
Mm.
personal. She
Yeah.
wants to fly a little. Like Karen just said, she's getting her wings. Like, she wants to fly a bit. And if that foundation's there, she's gonna, I'm telling you, 50, hold her out to 15. I think around 15 or 16, it's like, okay, I can settle into who I am with mom now. I'm feeling okay. I don't need to prove myself as much. In my experience, very limited.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Roots and wings, roots and wings. Amen.
Yes.
Very good.
But I think it's great she was comfortable sharing with you present, even while others were there. So take that as a great, and just even maybe say, like, wow, I've really enjoyed book club with you today. You have so much wisdom to share with people. And leave it at that. No guilt, no shame. Like, why won't you tell me that? But just, wow, it was really great to hear you talk. You are a really wise
Oh, I
girl.
love that. Love that. Love that. Yeah, I mean, I can think of times where I laugh because, my husband and I have pretty open communication. It's not very difficult. I mean, I don't feel like I have to, it's not like pulling teeth to get information out of him. But there have been times where, we're in a group chatting and he'll tell somebody about something and I'm like, you didn't tell me that. Like, I didn't know that was going on. So, and it's not that he was trying to hide it or something. It's just like, I don't know, you're in a different setting and what you feel like talking about or what you think people would want to hear or whatever is just different. And so, yeah, I love that idea of involving other friends. You can just kind of change the dynamics, just like going to get a frappuccino.
Yeah. And then definitely try the writing. I mean, it can't hurt. And again, go in it with the expectation that you are going to write. You will write notes to her. And if she doesn't respond, I've gone back in and just said, hey, I have something else I want to add to our journal. Can I have it? Even if she hasn't written.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Oh yeah, Amy says
Think to
similar to
begin.
my husband.
Ah.
Yep.
Yeah, and some people just are quieter. It's very hard for me to understand that.
Yeah.
It's not my personality. But I do think, and bedtime. I don't know what it is about
Yes. Yes.
bedtime.
Bedtime.
Um, oh my gosh, just I have found, now granted, I do not always have the energy for this, so please don't think. I try maybe 2 or 3 times a month. My husband goes up and tucks him in all the time. But I will go up, tuck in my 16-year-old, and then just sit down on her bed. And it's amazing what just starts happening.
Mm-hmm.
The talking. I don't even have to say anything. I just sit down. So, and look at her. And sometimes there's nothing, but other times, wow, So maybe bedtime too.
Yeah, my parents always joke about like, when you have teenagers, that's when like everything comes out at 11 p.m. They come and say, "Good night. I've been thinking," and you just go, "Okay, here we go."
Could you stop that thinking?
Yeah, it's like everything else gets quiet. The day is over, and they start, kind of processing all that stuff. So, all
It's true. It is true.
right, Mary. Well, before we finish up here, do you have any other last minute thoughts, or no pressure? It's okay if you
Oh,
don't, but
I do have one other resource that I didn't share that I'm reading right now, and I'm finding it amazing. So anyone who's interested in kind of exploring this idea from kind of the parent perspective and learning is I am reading this book right now, How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk. It is excellent. It is not written from a religious standpoint at all. It's a secular book. It was recommended by someone who I think is one of the wisest people I know. So I was like, oh, well, if they think that this book is good, I'm going to get it. And there's homework and all. So that's why I have a hard copy because you have to like write in it and stuff like that. I have already started implementing the techniques from chapter 1 and wow. I will be a better communicator with parenting and communicating with my kids reading this book. So I did want to throw that out there.
cool. Okay, well, I will add that to the show notes after the show. So if you are coming back to watch this on the replay, it should be linked to below the Crowdcast event on the post. Well, thank you guys for joining me. I am going to be back one more time next Tuesday night, and then we're going to be on hiatus for the holidays because Tuesday the 18th is my anniversary, and the 25th, I think I have something on the calendar that day. I can't remember. And then, of course, January 1st. So, Deb says she could only hear me. Well, I could hear Mary fine, so I'm not sure. Maybe check it on the replay and see if you can hear the audio that way. Anyway, so if you would just click up there above Mary, I think it's above Mary, where it says Lena at Live Without Training Wheels. And that way you will be notified when I go live. So when we come back online, I guess it'll be January the 8th. Just to clarify, we will be here next Tuesday on the 11th. We'll take a break. We'll be back January the 8th. And we'll be talking all about siblings in January, all kinds of sibling issues. So thank you all very much for joining me tonight. And for those of you who registered, I'll be emailing you shortly to let you know when the replay is live so that you can come and watch that if you're interested. Thank you so much, Mary, for being here. It's always
Thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure to talk with you. And it's kind of fun that we got to set aside a whole hour to just hang out and chat.
I know. We should do it again.
We should absolutely do it again. Actually, secret little note, we have some plans in the works for next year, but we'll keep those under our hat for right now.
Yes, we do.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right.
Bye.
Okay. Thanks. Bye-bye.